I got to go to Germany. We met a bunch of executives from Mercedes-Benz. We got to see their museum. Yeah, it was really exciting experience. I think the role of startups is honestly to just push that trend forward in ways that established companies and the government can't do. And then if startups succeed with that, then they get to attract capital and do it at a larger scale and do it basically more. Like CEOs of like giant companies, their only job is to make good decisions. I think CEOs of startups, they have to do that and they have to do the actual work themselves. It's really tough.
Hi there, my name is Wandile Chingila.
I'm Nolukanyo Mpisani.
From climate action to clean tech, we are bringing the next generation of leaders into the spotlight.
Where young voices light up the future. This is Youth in Energy Conversations. Let's spark the conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Youth and Energy Conversations, the podcast that gives young Africans a voice in shaping the future of energy.
Today's episode is a deep dive into tech, entrepreneurship, and impact. We're joined by Joshua, a dynamic young entrepreneur who's using AI and digital tools to transform the way operations and maintenance works in the renewable energy sector. He's proof that you can be both tech-driven and mission-focused, bringing innovation to one of the most overlooked but critical areas of the energy value chain. So whether you're a student, a tech lover, or an energy enthusiast, stay locked in.
Hi, Joshua, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Just to give our listeners and our viewers a chance to get to know you, please do share a bit about your background and what drew you to the energy space, especially you taking an interest in tech.
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Joshua. I'm the founder of Edna Labs. Thanks for that introduction. I'll be honest, I feel so like special. I don't know. I feel like the person you described isn't the person I feel like. So it's nice to be here. Yeah, so my sort of journey to entrepreneurship and renewable energy comes from, so I did my undergraduate degree in finance at the University of Cape Town. And during, all of our economics essays and research and whatever, I found that, there's a huge need for energy in Africa. The numbers are probably updated now, but at the time, we needed nearly $100 billion of investment in energy every year for the next 10 years for the African continent to catch up to Europe and America in terms of our energy production and energy usage. So I've always been like, wow, okay, something needs to be done. There must be a reason why we're not attracting that capital. And so, yeah, so I felt like, that's an area I wanted to sort of pay attention to and try and grow in. So when I finished my undergrad degree, I wanted to immediately do a master's in development finance to be able to sort of marshal that capital and get us that capital so we could grow. I don't know. So I ended up taking a job at Sanlam in their data graduate program. And so I was there for 4 years, grew as like a data analyst and data scientist in various roles in the company. And after 4 years, I was kind of like, okay, this is an amazing environment. I met so many great people, but I think now is the time to go out there and try and do something with this experience that I've gained and try and figure out what's going on in the energy space. And then just in terms of the masters, I'm still kind of trying to get that done. I would not suggest doing a master's, starting a business at the same time. It's very painful.
And maybe just understanding your transition from corporate, especially in finance, and then entering into your own venture. What motivated you and how has that journey been ever since?
So what motivated me? I think, so corporate's a great environment. I think it's a easy, I don't want to say easy, but it's there's kind of a path for your growth, right? You come in as an analyst, like in consulting companies, you come in as an analyst, you sort of go up to associate and then so on and so forth, right? Even in large corporates, the titles might be different, but there's a similar kind of tracked progression. I wanted to I think I've always wanted to do a startup. I wanted to grow. I know that a lot of people who, and I felt that there was no risk because if you're in corporate and you leave corporate to do your own thing, you gain so many skills that if you ever decide you want to go back to corporate, you come back as like a more capable individual. So I've always felt that, there honestly isn't that big of a risk for taking the jump. In terms of the actual transition, man, it's a lot of ups and downs. So you go from knowing that, on the 27th, you'll get your payslip and bank account goes up. And then when you go into like doing things for yourself, if you don't hunt, you don't eat. So I'm now at a point where it's like, okay, I have to push every single day to make sure that something happens. And that can mean like, doing like a small thing that results in being paid in a relatively short period of time, or building up a longer term project and recruiting people and planning future things and building tech and designing stuff that the payoff isn't going to be now. It might be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 6 months from now, when everything's done. And then you can go to market and be like, hey guys, we've got a new thing for you. Let's see if we can get a deal done.
Firstly, I want to give you kudos for doing your master's. I have been saying I'm going back. I still haven't gone back, but we will go back.
Yeah, do it. It's a great experience. You meet some amazing people. Sorry, actually,
Um,
can I speak more on that? As
yeah.
like a young person, so in my masters, right, I met some crazy people, and it's like people who it's like there were a few people around like my age, so I'm like in my late 20s now. There were a few people around my age, but there were like quite a few people who are like in their 40s, in their 50s. People like, huge organizations at publicly listed companies, big international companies doing the same master's degree that I was doing. So we would be, this was during, some of this was during COVID. So we would be up at like 8 p.m. at night, doing group work, trying to figure out like, oh, how do you answer this thing on like a discounted cash flow or whatever it is. And like it's such a great equalizer because you're speaking at the same level as people who are like really far in their careers, and they'll tell you sort of the keys to the kingdom and the secrets and stuff. Honestly, it's a great experience. I would, if you could do it next year, like I'd order.
No
It's a really
pressure.
good. No pressure, no
No
pressure, no pressure.
pressure. I mean, I come out of writing boards, so I just got admitted as an attorney like very recently in May.
Congrats.
So I come from like writing a whole lot of board exams and. So if we're being like read, I think this is like the first year that I'm not studying anything.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get
Since I
you.
left varsity. So maybe next year I'll be back doing a master's. But I do agree, you do probably will meet a lot of people in during the master's journey. And in your case, you met there was experience and theory, and you're building a network at the same time. So that's good. That's good. I want to get us into the O&M or operation and maintenance. Sometimes we use O&M loosely, thinking that everyone understands what O&M is. I want you to unpack for us what is O&M and why is it vital to the energy ecosystem?
I'm coming at this more from a data perspective. That's my like core competency, and I'm sort of picking up a lot of the energy concepts as I go. So if I get anything wrong, please give me a pass. So my understanding of operations and maintenance is build your plant and you want to just make sure that it's running smoothly, it's generating at the sort of maximum capacity that is like reasonable under your constraints. And if there's any faults or errors, you want to make sure that those things are addressed timelessly. I think that's at a very high level. When it comes to actually operating and maintaining, particularly solar plants, sorry, just for a bit more background. So we're focused on sort of commercial and industrial scale plants. So we're not at the IPP scale, utility scale, megawatts and megawatts of plants. So you could have like a one solar, call it installer, with a large portfolio of CNI plants that they maybe own and operate, and they're selling the energy to their clients. So it's their responsibility to make sure that those plants are generating at least at a certain, above a certain level, and have a certain amount of time. You want to make sure that any faults that come up are addressed quickly, so that you don't breach your agreements with your clients, and that you're able to generate the right amounts of energy. It can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. So I don't know if this is the forum to like dive into that.
Yes, we want to learn.
Okay. So if we're talking about maintenance, you can have sort of your preventative maintenance, and then I forget what the other term is, but basically if there's a fault, someone gets sent to site to address it. So on your preventative maintenance side, you would have maintenance schedules. You'd have someone who would come clean the solar panels, check the wiring. There's really interesting things that people are doing with drones to check that panels aren't damaged. You have people come and check for vegetation overgrowth, where you'd have shading on some of your panels. All of these things affect the amount of generation you get out of your sites. Sometimes things can be resolved remotely. Often you have to send someone to site just to investigate what's actually happening and get deeper insight into the fault and try to address that. As it relates to sort of what we do, so there's some interesting things happening where you would have like a monitoring platform which would give you an indication that there's a fault at one of your sites. It'll try to describe what the fault is. As a head of operations and maintenance, you've been told that this is what the fault is, and you'll send one of your technicians to the site to go and investigate, and they'll check and see that it's actually something different. Maybe not completely different, but you haven't got full picture of what the actual fault is based on their information. So they'll repair the fault, do a site report, and then bring that information back to your headquarters. The next time a similar fault happens, you'll get another notification that says the same thing it said last time, but you might think, or from your experience know, that it's something a bit different. So now if the head of operations leaves or the technician leaves, that insight that fault notification is actually for a different fault at that site gets lost with that person. So we're trying to sort of build up that reservoir of knowledge for companies so that you can have a really smooth operations and maintenance experience for the lifetime of the company, rather than having people coming and going and leaving with their information, with their insights.
If that's the case, then what kind of challenges or gaps did you see in the sector in order for you to want to build a tech-based sort of solution?
There's two things. There's the sort of gap, and then there's the where the technology is. So a lot of solar hardware now is becoming sort of connected to the internet. So your inverters, your battery energy storage systems, and then of course your data loggers are all sort of measuring the activity of the plants and then sending that to the cloud, where you can then access that information and do interesting things with it. So that was the one opportunity that we saw. The gap, very broadly, was that we felt that more stuff could be done with that information. So if you have a solar system at your house, and if you just look at the app that comes with that, it's like, it tells you how much solar you're getting, how much energy you're drawing from the grid, maybe the amount of energy you have in your battery system. But there's much more interesting things you could do with that. For instance, you could start to predict, and a company that I really love what they're doing right now is Utility. So you can start to predict how a household's going to use energy, or how a building's going to use energy, and you can actually adjust the amount of charging that your battery does, whether you want to whether you want to draw energy from the grid or from the solar plant at this particular time. So that's one example of interesting stuff that's happening. For us, we're focused on, so there's three things. One is managing operations technician teams who are out in the field, who are doing repairs, who are doing maintenance. We want to make managing those teams a bit simpler and a bit easier to do. The other thing is, if we talk about sort of reporting on plants, we want to make that a very seamless experience. So if I have this portfolio of plants, I want to report maybe to my investors, to my board, or to my customers how the whole portfolio is doing, or how a specific plant is doing. that can be a very time-consuming and difficult process. So what we do is we, as data people, we sort of get all the data, arrange it into something that's very usable and nice to look at, and then we send that out to the relevant person. The other thing is, yeah, sort of standard kind of dashboards about the performance of plants. Very, your yield, your generation, things like that.
And is all of this using AI or AI
Okay,
tech?
so AI,
Like, where does the AI come in?
yeah, so AI is an interesting one. At this point, there's a lot of stuff gets described as AI that in a way it is, but in a way it isn't. So at this point in time, so we don't use like large language models or any sort of generative AI in the product. We, of course, we do use it to help write code faster, to sort of generate first drafts of our user experience. The problem right now is that sort of your large language models aren't very good with manipulating numbers, which is the main thing we do. We track energy generation, we report financials, things like that. So large language models aren't that good at maths at the moment. For now, we're not quite using agents or anything like that in our work. There is a place for sort of algorithms. I don't want to oversell it as AI because it's not exactly AI. It's stuff that's been around for a while.
Out of curiosity, is there a reason why you're not doing wind and focusing on solar?
So we wanted to focus on one because it's kind of a small team. I mean, I started the company literally just by myself to try and learn what solar companies need and what wind companies need at the same time seemed to be a bit difficult. The reason we chose solar was at the time, and this would have been the beginning of last year, or phrased another way, the end of 2023, which was like the biggest solar year ever in South Africa. The market was growing at the time, like in a big way. So it made sense to focus on solar at that point.
What's one example where Edna Labs made a measurable impact on plant performance, or where rather your business had a pinch me moment? Like, I can't believe this is happening.
I should say we're still developing the product, so we're actually pre-launch right now. So a pinch me moment was, so we were accepted into Be Visionaires, the Mercedes-Benz Fellowship. So earlier this year, I think in April, I got to go to Germany to see. We met a bunch of executives from Mercedes-Benz. We got to see their museum. Yeah, it was really exciting experience. So actually, so that fellowship was funded by the sale of a super fancy old school Mercedes called the Uhlenhaut. And so they raised 100 million euros from selling that. And so they use those funds to fund this fellowship. So it's like a bunch of young eco-leadership fellows from around the world, from, of course, Germany to India, South Africa, Kenya, the US. Yeah, so we all, not all of us, but like quite a few of us got to go to Germany earlier this year, which was an amazing experience.
I can imagine you went all the way to Germany.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Do you think at some point, because I know we're focused on energy, so being renewable energy, solar or wind, do you think, or there is a space to venture into EV, is it electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, in terms of the data and the analytics that your business uses?
Yeah, that's oh my word. I want to pretend I'm like this like super future seeing entrepreneur, and I thought about that, and it has not even occurred to me until right now that EVs is a good place to go. So, but yeah, I could see it because it's the same kind of thing, right? So all this internet connected energy hardware generates a lot of data, and I think EV chargers, EVs are the same in that way. So I'm not sure exactly what the needs of that industry are. It's not something we've explored, but yeah, could be at some point. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think the role of startups like Edna Labs play in accelerating the just energy transition?
So if we put startups in sort of a bigger context, there's your sort of established companies, there's the government, and then I would say there's startups, right? And of course, there's people who are using energy who, from my experience, most energy users, not that they don't completely care, but the things they prioritize when it comes to getting energy are that it's affordable and it's reliable. Other than that, people aren't too fussed. So even when it comes to sort of the growth of solar in South Africa, that's been because solar companies are able to provide reliable and affordable energy. I think the role of startups is honestly to just push that trend forward in ways that established companies and the government can't do. Big companies, there's a thing called the innovator's dilemma. Big companies need to grow their revenues and profits, and they aren't going to do things that could jeopardize their revenues or profits, even if it would help drive down the cost of energy or improve the reliability of energy sources for customers. That is exactly what startups need to do. Startups have to do things that big companies can't do. And they have to come up with ideas that big companies, can't do because of the limitations that they have. And then if startups succeed with that, then they get to attract capital and do it at a larger scale and do it basically more. And then the way that obviously improves the country is by giving all of us more affordable energy and more reliable energy. And the government's role in that is simultaneously to sort of support startups. On the one hand, support startups. There's a lot of great grant programs out there, NYDA for young people. So the NYDA provides funding to startups and small businesses that are run and operated by young people. And they also have a lot of great training and employment programs. So you want to have those sort of financial and non-financial support things coming from government. On the other hand, you also want the right regulations and in some cases, less regulation. I'm not quite an expert on that side of things. We haven't really encountered that in a big way, but it is something that I've seen from reading and things like that.
I guess because it's a startup, in finding solutions, you can take more risks
Yeah.
versus with the bigger companies where they have to think about profit and not scaring off investors.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to think about profits too, but it's just more from, we don't have to protect existing profits. But yeah, we don't have like billions and billions of rands of profits to protect. So we, exactly as you're saying, we can take the risks, we can do the crazy thing that no one thinks will work, kind of a thing.
That's very interesting to hear. And I mean, entrepreneurship, number one, is not easy. It's not for the faint-hearted. It is not for the faint-hearted. And being in a position of being in a startup, after so many years of receiving a salary and so on and so forth. And then from there, what advice do you have for young professionals who want to work at the intersection of tech and energy?
Before I say try to give anyone any advice, I want to say I'm kind of stupid. So any advice I give, take it with a hint of salt, with a pinch of salt. But I would say don't wait. If you want to pursue, honestly, in general, whatever you want to do, I think try and think of the smallest, least risky version of doing that thing. If you want to start a business, if you want to start a podcast and you're scared to put yourself out there, just record yourself talking in your room about something that you care about and then listen back to it and then do that somewhat regularly. Eventually you'll be happy with how it comes out, and then maybe you upload it to an online platform. If you I studied, as I said earlier, I studied finance. I've been seriously considering doing another undergrad degree in like electrical engineering or something like that, something where you get to work directly on these cool technology things. So sorry, it depends on the different stages of the person. So if someone's in high school and they want to pursue career in technology or engineering, take maths seriously. I think that's very tactical, specific advice. Take your maths seriously. Even if you're not getting, if that's something you want to do and you're not getting good maths marks right now, first you have to tell yourself that you can be good at maths. Because I think a lot of people who aren't good at maths tell themselves that they can't be good at maths. So I think the first step is just like believing that you can do it. And then just like practice, talk to your teachers, tell them that you want to pursue this thing when you get to university, and make sure that they know that as well, so they can give you the support that you need. If it's possible, get a tutor. If it's not possible, try annoy the smart kids and tell them like to tell you what they did to be good at maths. So I think maths is a very I think it's underrated. Just frankly, just sticking with like core maths and trying to get good at that. If you want to pursue, like an engineering kind of path, yeah. And if you can't, like talk to people who've done it before. Like I think that's also kind of an underrated thing. They'll tell you where all the potholes are and what to sort of avoid as you pursue that career.
No, that's quite interesting, hey? Because I totally understand when you mentioned that you feel like going back and doing another undergrad, especially like engineering and stuff. And I've been in that similar situation where my undergrad was completely different. And I was like, once I completed it, I literally shifted to engineering because I felt like there's so much more I can do there, bring more
Mhm.
change. I don't know, but there was like so much more I could do with engineering compared to what I did for my undergrad.
What would you say has been the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur?
So this is maybe a bit personal, but it might help people out there. There's a thing to balance between working hard and then being tired from working hard, and then having that impact your, and this is something people don't talk about, having that impact your like emotional clarity and your clarity of thought. Like CEOs of like giant companies, their only job is to make good decisions. I think CEOs of startups, they they have to do that, and they have to do the actual work themselves. It's really tough. So that's sort of like an ongoing challenge that I don't have the answer to yet. Of course, there's a lot of stuff around doing the right things at the right time. So during the day, I try to talk to customers, talk to have meetings with our or potential customers, have meetings with the team, have meetings with people who are outside the business. And then in the evening is when I'm like designing software and like helping with the code and the algorithms and working on stuff like that. So I can stay up like quite late, like often until like 1 a.m. doing that. And I still try to get like a reasonable amount of sleep so that my decision making and emotional clarity don't go completely out the window. So there's that. I mean, there's so many things. The other thing is just managing cash. It can be kind of tough. You want to just kind of plan and like sort of think like, okay, can I survive for 12 months without getting a single cent from anything else? If you can do that, then that gives you a lot of freedom to be able to focus on the main thing that you want to get done, as opposed to 3 months in, you're like scrambling to try and figure out, okay, how am I gonna buy groceries this month, as an example. And then you end up doing a lot of sort of suboptimal work just to kind of pay the bills. Again, that's one of those things that's easier said than done, and it's sort of part of the entrepreneurial lifestyle. But yeah, I think that's something that if you can avoid, if you have a way to avoid that, you should try to avoid that.
Do you think becoming an entrepreneur changed your definition of success? Because I think most of us, when you're a kid, right? In your head, you're like, by 25, I'm gonna be driving a Ferrari, I'm gonna be living
Yes,
in a mansion,
yes.
I'm gonna be living my best life. So, now that you're an entrepreneur, obviously, like your goals have changed as well. So how do you think success now for you has changed?
I think the way success maybe has changed is I think there's still, if I'm super honest, there's still the desire for the big house and the fancy car and the all of that. But it's not, I don't think it's the main thing. I think the main thing now is people talk about financial freedom. So to have a number where you don't have to work if you don't want to, where you know your family's sorted, where you can take that holiday when you want to take it. I think that's what success looks like. But even that can be kind of a long-term vision. And then it can sometimes it can be tough to get motivated by that every single day. So for me, I break things down into very small goals that I call success, right? Which if we succeed at that, then that leads to success at the larger thing. But it's not in itself, it's not like the thing. So for us, we are trying to launch our product within a reasonable period of time. That's going to be a day where we'll like pop champagne and have balloons and everything. But it's not the end goal. It's actually really just the beginning of the journey. Overall, like just measuring the way that I get to feel successful every day is by measuring myself against those smaller goals and seeing that I'm consistently hitting them. And then if the company is doing that, then we know that we're building up to something really big in the future.
And you're right, you start small, right? And work your way up. Because I mean, success is obviously different for all of us. I look at the normal person, let's say, who let me not say normal person, not the right word, but let's say the person who chose to take the traditional route of go to varsity, you get a job, and like you were saying earlier, you are an associate, and then you're this, and your life is, I don't want to say planned, but there's a structure to it, right?
Yeah,
Versus
absolutely.
when you decide to become an entrepreneur, then there isn't a structure. You're figuring the structure as you go about.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you have any mentors or networks that are
Yeah.
helping you in sort of building now this dream, or even to get to where you are now? Was there anything of that sort that essentially helped you to become where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So Be Visionaires, the Mercedes-Benz Fellowship, I think that's something that I would suggest to any person. I think the cutoff is 28 or 29. Anyone under the age of 28 to 29 working in the especially renewable energy industry, look out for that. They paired me with two great mentors. One is, they call it a venture coach, who we meet every month in a group, and he'll like give advice on stuff. And he'll hear like what we're going through and whatever, and he'll give us advice. Then also with Be Visionaires, I got another mentor who works at Mercedes-Benz. Great guy. We spoke this is kind of funny. We spoke for like a long time, like 6 months, and he was like dropping all these gems, and he spoke about all this crazy stuff that he's done. And I was like, oh wow. And like it sounded like he'd been working for like 15 or 20 years or something. 6 months in, I realized I think I was asking him about like music or something, but basically I realized that he's like younger than me.
What?
And I was like, wow, what? Yeah. Like crazy. This guy is so smart and so like mature and everything. And it made me want to up my game, just of the existence of this person. So yeah, so young people, don't be scared to mentor people who are older than you, I think is also another mentor. So I was part of a renewable energy business incubation thing called Sarebi, right? Based out of city of Cape Town. The CEO of Sarebi, so I would call him a mentor as well. And then that program also paired me with an official mentor through the program. So it was a collaboration between them and Rotary, and I got a great mentor from that. It's so valuable to have mentors. So key. Like, I would say, I'll say this: start without a mentor. The thing you want to do, just do it. The mentors will find you. The Sarebi person that I'm speaking about, I went to a networking event and I met, for my business that I had already started, and I met him there, and he was like, "Oh, this is so interesting what you're doing, da 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 da," and that's how we sort of started like talking. I can tell you, I mean, I would have done it anyway, but with his help, it's been, I think, a way more. I think we've been able to do things way faster and way better than we would have done without him. Yeah, mentors are super helpful, and yeah, you'll be surprised who you can learn stuff from as well. There's a lot of like unofficial mentors, people who've mentored me that don't even know I exist. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all these people's books. I've read all of their biographies, and I've learned a lot from those as well. So I would even call those people, I would call them mentors.
Basically, it's very important to have a mentor as a young person starting up, whether you're building your career, whether you're building a business. Mentorship is vital. Even if I guess there isn't necessarily someone who's doing what you're doing, like you said, because I was about to ask you, what about when you want to do something and no one is really doing what you are doing? So it's almost like,
Yeah.
where do I even look to for direction? But you answered me.
Yeah. I'd say, so if there's no one directly around you, books, YouTube can be a distraction, but something it's super valuable for is like finding people who are doing the things you want to do. They might be a few years ahead, they might be way in like a different realm like of success, but they are available online.
Thank you for that. We have this hot seat game. We just throw rapid fire questions at you, and you just say like the first thing that comes to your mind. If energy had a personality, what kind of person would it be and why?
Okay, energy in South Africa or energy globally?
Hey, anything that comes to your mind, if energy had a personality, what kind of person would it be and why?
So energy energy in South Africa is that friend who, when you see them, you're like, yo, so happy to see you, bro, and you have the best time, but they just never reply to your WhatsApp messages. That's energy in South Africa.
That is funny. Why would you say you never replied to your WhatsApp messages though?
I mean, look, I don't want to, I don't want to throw shade, but you know,
I get it. I get it. I get it. Would you rather fix a faulty inverter in the Karoo heat or code for 10 hours straight with no coffee?
I'd rather code for 10 hours straight with no coffee. Yeah, I could not. If I was made to fix an inverter in Karoo, I would electrocute myself and probably like damage the inverter even more. Yeah, I'd rather do the coding.
What's one song that gets you hyped to start the day?
So maybe the whole album, "Let God Sort 'Em Out" by Clips, or maybe the song on that album called POV, featuring Tyler the Creator.
What's your personal mantra?
What's it? Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. I think it was really interesting chatting to you, because you're someone who's in the energy space. You didn't study engineering because I don't want to say the default, but the most of the people that you hear, they have an energy background. They're in engineering, so they obviously understand the technical parts of it. Whereas I think it was refreshing speaking to you, knowing that you don't necessarily have to have an engineering degree to tap into the energy space. Well, I think I'll close us off. Joshua, thank you for sharing your journey, insights, and vision. It's inspiring to see how innovation, passion, And perseverance can really change the way we think about energy. And for all the young people listening, you don't have to wait for permission to lead. Start where you are, build what matters, and don't be afraid to do things differently.
And just like that, that's a wrap on today's episode. But the energy doesn't stop here. Don't forget to follow, share, and leave a review.
Until next time, stay connected and keep it real. This is Youth in Energy Conversations.